One afternoon, in a village in Machakos, there was a lady who was expectant. And a relative, in fact, a father-in-law, not a father-in-law, a brother-in-law, was drunk, found her on the way, and he kicked her on the side. And she fell, came to, and later decided to pack and go to her parents, which was a distance away, so a couple of hours. Following morning, she took a bus and went into Machakos General Hospital. And she was there for the whole day. And the doctors were like, "You're okay." But she said she wasn't okay. Around sunset, she decided to stroll back to the hospital. And just as she was getting to the gate, she collapsed. So they took her on and put her in the theater. She hadn't eaten the whole day. And when she came to, she asked the question, was the baby that I had alive? And they said, yes. And it's a boy. But don't touch him carelessly because he has a swollen hand. I was that baby. And she did not think twice. She called me Matata, a name I'm proud of to this day. But I live it every day, so when you meet me, you feel Matata. Fast forward again, my mom was expectant. So she packed one evening, and the following day, she went to Pumwani. 3 days later, we waited, and she said, I'll come with, could be a boy, could be a girl. And they came back. 3 days later, she got out of the bus. My father followed. There was no child. So we said, what happened? And with tears in her eyes, she said, there's no baby. And we said, okay, with the innocence of children, it was like, so, you had that baby, yes. So what happened to it? And it's at that time that we learned that she had a stillborn, she didn't have a baby. When I was 14, I was going to secondary school. And as I went, my cousin who brought me up, or was babysitting me, Milka she was, had gotten married. She was much older than me. And I remember my mother telling me, you know what, she's going to have a baby. And I was excited, and I said, she deserves it. She was a beautiful woman. And my mother came, and she came that evening, and she was crying. And I said, what happened? She said, your cousin got a baby, but she did not survive. And I asked again the question, why? How? What happened? Where did she go? Fast forward again, I got married, much late, not at 14. And after 1 year, we were expecting our first child. We went to Aga Khan Hospital, and I was really expectant. And we were like, life begins, and let's see how we take it on. And I went one evening, so we were together with Stella, my wife, and we went home. I went home, I left her there, and I was told, tomorrow morning. I never slept that night. 7 o'clock, I was at Aga Khan. And I was like, let me go and see my wife and the baby. And when I went in, a nurse met me. And she said, come to this room. And I said, what do you mean? He said, no, come here. And then 2 others joined. And I looked at them and I said, what's happening here? And then they said, we are sorry. I said, sorry for what? And they said, the baby did not survive. They talked of something called abruptio. So the placenta separated and the baby drowned in 1.5 pints of, and I was like, okay, fine. Where is my wife? Said, she lost blood, a lot of blood. And I said, is she alive? He said, yes. So I went into her room, I found her, she was pale. I touched her, she was cold. And I was like, So she opened her eyes briefly, and at least she was breathing. Her HB had moved from, I think, 14 to 4. So she had lost like 10 pins, yeah. 4, and they were saying, we are literally holding on to her. She came to, and I thanked God. Never prayed as much. I first blamed God, whether he existed. I looked at what I had done to warrant this. And finally, she came out of hospital, and we walked together. Later, we got a daughter who was born on my birthday, so that made it absolutely special. And 2 boys who think now they are stronger than me, but that is a story for another day. But something happened again in my career, and this time I was working for Kenya Airways. And I discovered what loss could be to humanity, not necessarily to your blood relations. And in this case, we lost an aircraft in Douala. And I remember that evening, I was speaking to the crew families, and there was one that was particularly tough. And they were broken. I didn't know what to tell them. And finally, one of them decided to call me names. Said we were useless, we had killed the husband, we had done everything. And this was about midnight. So I had stayed the whole day in a crisis room. I was supposed to be superhuman, no feelings. At Yaya Center, I parked on the side and I broke down. And I went home to my wife and I said, life can never be this tough. Later, I was sharing with Agatha that I was the one who was reading the nationalities of all the people who perished at KICC in the presence of the head of state. The toughest part, though, had to come. And I was asked to go to Douala to represent the airline in the mass burial of those passengers and crew who had not been identified. I remember speaking there, and later I was asked to carry the bag that contained anything that was traced for the crew. That was the heaviest bag I've ever carried. It was less than 2 kilograms, but I carried it and I got to Nairobi. And I flew back with some of the families of the crew. And I think I saw the biggest piece for me was how others grieved and how I felt. So it was a big piece of it. One consistent thing was I learned to reach out to others, not to ask for any help, because I thought I'm supposed to be there for others. And the last, I think, 2 years will be perhaps the strongest headwinds I've ever received. So my mother on 18th of September got a stroke. And hasn't spoken since. And later, I think around the same time, about 2 weeks after, Bob came and announced that he had a condition and he had to go. I had just worked for about 4 months. So my mother and Bob, whom I really regarded, and as I was looking to join Safaricom, I think is one reason why I said I would join this company. And we walked through. My mother was in ICU for about a month. Aga Khan, Nairobi, went back home. And we've managed. And I will speak to the 4 things that have kept us going. But around November, my father came from the village because he was a stronger of the two. And he came in and we stayed with him in my house. We converted one of our bedrooms into a ward, which is fantastic because I wake up and I know my mother is with me. And then my father left after 1 month. And he was with Stella one day on the 16th of December 2018. And the following day, he crashed and died in a car. Bob came to speak at my father's requiem mass. And I think for me what stood bigger was people walking with us 1st of July, coming to the end of this, was my 2nd anniversary at Safaricom. And we woke up to the news. Toughest week. No gory details, but I think we were here in the morning. Who was here that day? Yeah. Heavy. You know where you almost say, what a life. But what was big was where you had live a purposeful life. It's not about what you got through. You have to remain strong. As we were saying goodbye, my friend and driver was admitted, and my mother was admitted. I think my learning is sometimes just try to walk in the shoes of others. Most importantly, the 4 things I said work beautifully. 1, I believe there's a God, and he will never test you more than you can survive. I believe that. Number 2, the power of family. If you have a family member, whoever they are, reach out to them because they will be your centerpiece of emotional support. My wife, Stella, is 1. I have a cousin who comes every week to see my mom. 3, friends. Not necessarily the boys' club or the girls' club, but people who can walk with you. People who will not look at you as a title, as a position, but as a human being, and connect with you in a powerful way. I've got friends, for instance, in church that they recite Hail Mary every evening since my mom was admitted. And you look at that and you say, wow. And finally, it's also you as a person. I think it's the attitude you wear. Again, every day I wake up and I say, I will have a smashing day. And I will be there for somebody and live my purpose, which is to inspire the possibilities in others. I'll say this. If there's somebody in your life, try to reach out to them, connect, and be that human being. Thank you, and good night.